Hello, my name is Rwabwogo and I work at the Tomosi Group as a business trainer and strategy support officer. I welcome you all to our podcast. The podcast covers topics such as finance, sales, marketing, communication, and many more. This podcast is supported by the Tomosi Foundation, our community giving arm. Enjoy. Hello, this is session 5. I remember we took a bit of a break last week in order to address our internal audience at Tomosi Group, and we resume these sessions, the Tomosi Business Teaching Series. We resume now on the topic, the tools for customer acquisition. Tools for customer acquisition. Last week, we closed on 3 key things in our introductory topic on the subject of customer service to our audience both at Tomosi Group and beyond. These were the importance of place, language, and demographics. I thank all those who watched or listened to the end of the last session on customer service. I applaud the creative team for making some changes to the look and feel of these sessions, and I guess partly this is the reason we got some positive feedback that this message was easy to relate to and that the local examples we used made sense to many of you. The team at TAP Media, our human resource department, our sponsors, the Tomosi Foundation, have all worked together in this season to keep the training series running, and they have reached out to the online audience and some of our online suppliers of services such as website maintenance and management. I like this inclusion as an approach to both life and business, and I sincerely thank them on your behalf. This lockdown has helped us to connect and keep really what matters working. This builds our business relationships even if we don't see each other physically, and I guess this is good for our clients too, many of whom we've kept in touch over the last 1 month. We hope by the time this session is listened to, a significant part of the country's economy will be open and we begin the return to normalcy. I hope it won't be the old normal. It will be a new normal that forces us to care about our customers more than we have done in the past. I hope it makes us better salespeople and generally getting us to adopt new and better methods of work to improve our performance. Today's session hopes to tackle one important aspect of customer service. As I said, it is called customer acquisition. This word acquisition really gives us a feel of gaining possession of a thing you didn't have, or becoming a master at a profession, or attracting the right set of ingredients to get something done, whichever way you want to interpret it. It simply means attracting customers to your goods and services. But let me first of all assume that by now you know we have a product on the market that we are selling and we are running a business. By this I mean you listening to me and me conveying this message to you know we are running an enterprise. To run a business or an institution for that matter, we must have the right people, which means the skill we have in-house and its ability to compete. We have processes, which means that ensure we can deliver both on time and in good quality of the service or product. A process is what guarantees that we are not delivering defective goods or services to our customers, that we have controls, that we have good systems and clear procedures to compete. It means we are not one person designing, selling, issuing invoices, paying taxes, hiring people, checking quality, and owning the business. Well, just so you know, there's no harm in doing all the above I mentioned as one person, but we must know it will be hard to scale our business if we keep it this way. Remember, a business is about people and processes. If it has to have a wider impact in its community than just the founding ideas of the people who birthed it. I also assume that at this stage we know we have tools of trade, which means that the infrastructure needed to deliver our products or service, here we mean vehicles, offices, equipment, IT, etc. And finally, that we have a minimum level of experience. Let me ask you, have you helped a customer lately in the area in which you seek to compete? Well, experience makes us comfortable to deliver, makes us more reliable before our customers so they can trust us to solve their problems professionally. When you add up all the 4 things I mentioned above, remember these? I said people, I said processes, I said tools, I said experience. Now when you add up all the 4 things, you begin to see finances of the business and its asset base in the right light. I hope our finance team will be kind to elaborate more on this when their turn on this podcast comes. These 4 aspects are what we must deal with internally for us to serve customers. But first, to understand that customers can look and be different from what you expect them to be, I need to tell you this story from the 1990s. Remember, I'm a child of the 1990s, I guess. That's when I grew up. I find this story intriguing as a way to dig deeper around people, read customers, and not to take their surface impressions as a reflection of who they truly are. You see, you can choose to call customers clients if you are in consulting business, such as the work we do at TAP. You can call them patients. If you're in the medical industry, you can call them donors and beneficiaries. If you're in the non-profit world, such as the Tomosi Foundation, you can call them party members if you belong in politics. You can call them citizens if you run a government. You can call them voters if you're aspiring for a political position. You can call them taxpayers if you're a revenue agency. It really doesn't matter the name. What is important is that these people, if you remember the demographic story I spoke about in the last podcast, they have key needs, and you have a service that fulfills those needs. They hold certain expectations about your service and how they will be treated when they meet you or your product. They will withhold their trust if they find that even with your nicely designed brochures, expensive television and radio commercials, your impeccable dress code, and your ability to speak through the nose, pretending to be what you are not, well, you can have all those. The product promise, when it doesn't match the real delivery, you lose trust. Behind the niceties and dressing, if customers discover that there are people who care more about how much they can sell to them and the returns they get rather than the nature of service they offer to the buyers, remember in our selling podcast? Well, when they find out all this, all the glitterity simply collapses. You are just among the many crappy service providers and you have no uniqueness. If you have been in a nice restaurant with a good chef who prepares great food, but the waiters who deliver it to you are mean-looking, they have no smile, they don't ask how you felt about their service, they threw bills at you, you know that this restaurant, even with its very good food, will have few patrons in the long run. People who go into restaurants don't lack food at home. They simply want a good moment and a place to enjoy a meal and not to endure your service. A chef, therefore, is only as good as the billing people. He's only as good as the waiters and waitresses. He's only as good as the restaurant cleaners and managers and many more. It's a rhythm of service that resonates with the customer, and this applies in all our businesses. You know, I have heard from managers and even our leaders say, and I quote, I am good, but you can add on my manager, my assistant, my accounts, whatever. Well, they are not good as I am. Let me tell you, you are as good as your team is. Here is a story I would like to share with you. Ana Belén Montes was a promising young American student, active in student associations and debates at the end of the 1970s. All eyes were on her. The U.S. intelligence services noticed her abilities and they approached her with a job offer. Many of you might not know this, but the intelligence services don't look for lousy people. They too are fishing for the bright and the smartest candidates available on the market. If you meet some lousy intelligence officers on an operation, well, you know that its leadership is lousy too. Ana Montes was recruited into the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, one of the many U.S. spy agencies, in the year 1984. She grew through the ranks of this organization, and by the time of her retirement, she was equivalent in rank to a military colonel. Montes served on many sensitive missions as an analyst, including and up to the 2002 intelligence operation that led to the U.S. war in Afghanistan after 9/11. Montes' key account, however, was the island of Cuba, the country whose government America has fought to remove since 1961. But something unexpected happened on February 24, 1996. Some 2 American aircrafts were shot down by the Cuban Air Force. They had been chartered by a group of Cuban exiles seeking regime change in Havana. The name of the group was Hermanos al Rescate. Hermanos al Rescate means brothers to the rescue in English. Who had provided information about the flight routes? What intelligence information did the Cubans have beyond the shooting of these aircrafts? How was it possible that the timing of the incident coincided with press reports in the US that the Cubans were annoyed and they would shoot planes that continuously violated their airspace, and that the US would take the full blame for this action given the Cuban exiles' use of the US as a staging ground for the violation of another nation's sovereign territory? How could all this information pass the analyst's blind eye? Was Fidel Castro a step ahead of the well-resourced U.S. intelligence services? Was this a David, in quote, like Cuban leader running a better surveillance operation than the big Goliath, quote, the neighbor with their seemingly unlimited resources? All these questions were part of the public speculation early 1996. Then suddenly, in 2001, a piece of information randomly picked by another analyst from another intelligence agency showed that there had been a DIA contact with Guantanamo Bay. I'm using these names, I hope you read about them, and they're in the news most of the time, so I guess you would understand. Guantanamo Bay is part of the island of Cuba, but it's occupied by the US forces. They found that there had been a contact with that island from the Defense Intelligence Agency, and that this contact had neither been registered nor authorized. This triggered a frenzy, searching, I should say wide-ranging investigation that eventually found Miss Ana Belén Montes had been a reliable, deep-seated spy for the Cuban intelligence for more than 16 years. When she was arrested, a shortwave radio hidden in a shoebox in her apartment was found. Through this radio, Ana Belén Montes had been sending encrypted communication to Havana on a very regular basis. In over 16 years she had been employed by the U.S. intelligence agency, she had never taken a hard copy report out of the DIA. So no evidence could be traced. She simply used her mind to memorize all the events of the day, the decisions made by the agency, and she communicated all this in code to her Cuban handlers. She had even gone secretly to Cuba. She had met the legendary Fidel Castro, and Castro had personally awarded Montes a Cuban Medal of Honor. Montes even had a brother in another U.S. security agency, but the fellow had no idea what his sister had been up to all these 16 years. Montes was sentenced to 25 years in jail for spying and sabotage, but she had helped Havana, or Cuba, survive the 1990s with the very critical information from the US that she had passed on to Cuba. I tell this story not because I want you to know about Latin American politics or regional politics between the US and Cuba. No, I tell this story because for 16 years, a well-facilitated army, US Army, had no idea they had a mole at a very high level sitting in all their key meetings on strategy, on operations, on methods, on tactics. This mole was paid by a well-resourced agency in Washington, D.C., but this mole believed in none of what all the U.S. governments were doing, and she instead fell, as if under spell, for the small, under-resourced Cuba. Let me tell you the moral of this story. Customers can act quite in a similar fashion. You too will not know the customers unless you take time to understand and have an interest in who they are. When I was a high school student, I would be surprised at the tone and facial expression of some shopkeepers in my town of Mbarara who would completely ignore people simply because these people came from various villages on a morning bus, not smelling very nice, but they were there to buy household goods. There would be this look of disdain on the shopkeeper's face until the man or woman, who would ideally not be dressed like the city folks, opened his money bag. The shopkeepers unashamedly would change their countenance and give almost ravish attention in a proverbial admonition that we must never judge the book by its cover. Customers too can look the part, but they think of you completely different from what you thought they ought to think of you. Just because they look a certain way doesn't mean they are with you or they will buy your products. They could even be with you for a season and a specific reason, but they believe none of what you offer. They will fly away at every little opportunity to abandon you because you have not made significant investments in preparation and changing their behavior towards your product. You have not invested in how they should think so that you can attract them in a sustainable manner. When Montes was interrogated, to go back to that example, she said she had earned zero money from Cuba for her role in helping Castro. She simply did it because she believed the US was wrong in her policies against Cuba, and she decided to support the weaker opponent, the supposed victim, in the perception of many. What do we take away? Customers come to you for very many reasons. And the list might be because you have the best product, or you possess the largest shop in town, or you have a good consulting agency, or perhaps you come from a particular group in a country. This could be the list on their mind when they come to you. Now, this is not in any way to demean the role of a good product. It is simply another way of saying, please dig deeper to understand customers. Get off your shallow surface and drill into customer needs at their deep end. In Uganda and in Africa generally, price is a major driver of sales, but even this isn't enough. We can run all low prices on the same street, but your shop or service is not taken and mine is filled with customers to the overflow. Customers come for your service because you've shown that you care, that you serve them well, and in the end, they are emotionally connected to you for a long time. When the US Army was recruiting Montes in 1983, the Cubans too were pitching for her services. But the Americans had no idea someone was speaking in perhaps a language easier than theirs to this lady. They believed that power, the Americans, that power and resources drives recruitment. Well, the Cubans must have told a better story than the big boys. Monte's story, even if it is in the realm of military intelligence, it really gives us an example of a good effort at customer attraction, even under difficult circumstances. Customers will stay with you when they know you understand their needs better than the competition, which is why attraction of customers is my number one item in this session. You don't want to miss this coming topic, especially if you've come along with us since we began. Stay well and stay safe. I look forward to the reopening of our country progressively so that we can do business in a new way, given the change in circumstances occasioned by this coronavirus. Please visit us for more of this on www.tomosigroup.ug or www.odrekrwabwogo.com, odrekrwabwogo.com. Or better still, call us on 0414-220-702, 0414-220-702. Juliana or Susan will be waiting to receive you. Would like to hear from you, especially those of you who are non-Tomosi members and are enjoying these sessions. God bless you and enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye. This podcast is supported by the Tomosi Foundation, our community giving arm.